My wife cheated on me with her boss, secretly took $200, $0 from our joint account to fund their affair, and now she's claiming I'm manipulative while fighting me over our house worth $750, $0 in a bitter legal battle. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get like this. One day everything seemed normal. My wife, Lisa, was her usual bitchy, high-maintenance self, throwing tantrums over the smallest things, but that's been our routine for years. We'd been married for 8 years, and honestly I thought we had a decent enough life. She's a sharp-tongued real estate agent, always pushing her way to the top, and I run a small but steady construction business. We had a nice house worth around $750, $0, and we were supposed to be building our future together, or so I thought. Then suddenly things started to feel off. Lisa became distant, secretive even. It was subtle at first. She'd stay late at work, cancel plans last minute, and I'd catch her sneaking her phone away whenever I entered the room. I'd ask her about it and she'd brush it off with her usual bitchy attitude, calling me paranoid or manipulative. But I could feel something was wrong. I started paying more attention, watching her more carefully, and that's when I found the first clue. It was a random evening. She'd gone out with her friends, or so she said. I was home alone, scrolling through our joint bank account online just to check the usual expenses. That's when I noticed a strange transfer. $200, $0 gone from our account. I froze. My stomach sank. I thought maybe it was a mistake, but no, it was real. Someone had taken a huge chunk out of our savings, and I knew instantly it wasn't a bank error. It was too precise, too deliberate. I logged into her email and social media accounts, trying to find out what she was up to. That's when I stumbled onto the messages, flirty, suggestive texts between her and her boss, Mark. She'd been hiding it all along. They'd been having an affair for months, probably longer. The texts were explicit, talking about their sexcapades, plans to meet up, and how much she loved the thrill of hiding it from me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe it. My wife, my partner, had been betraying me behind back, and with her boss no less. The man she'd always pretended to respect and work hard for. I was furious, betrayed, humiliated. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial too. She secretly taken that money to fund their affair, probably to pay for hotels, gifts, who knows what else. I felt sick thinking about how she'd lied to my face every day, pretending to be the loving wife I thought I knew. The worst part, when I confronted her, she everything at first, calling me crazy. She told me I was manipulative, that I was reading too much into her late nights and secret phone calls, but the evidence was irrefutable. I had screenshots, bank statements, and her own messages. The truth was staring me right in the face. She just looked at me with that smug, bitchy expression, trying to gaslight me into second-guessing myself. I was shattered. I never saw it coming. I thought we were solid, that we had a life others. But she was living a double life, secretly sneaking around with her boss and stealing from us. All the while, she called me paranoid or insecure whenever I tried to get her to explain. I felt so betrayed, so angry, I didn't know what to do. I kept replaying everything in my head, her sneaky behavior, the late nights, the secret texts, and I realized I was in a war I didn't even know I was fighting. I had to figure out my next move, but honestly I was just numb with shock and rage. After I found out about the affair and that huge chunk of money missing, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to her lies, the betrayal, the way she'd looked at me like I was the crazy one when I confronted her. She had this way of twisting everything around, making it seem like I was the problem, like I was overreacting or manipulative. That bitchy smile she always threw on when she was trying to gaslight me. God, I hated it now. I knew I had to confront her again, face her head on, but I wanted to be prepared this time. I started digging deeper into her phone and emails, trying to find out how long she'd been sneaking around, how much she'd taken, and what her plans were. I needed hard proof, and I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of this. It took days, but I finally uncovered the full extent of her lies. Turns out she'd been coasting on her charm at work, flirting with Mark, her boss, for months. She told him she hated her marriage, that I was manipulative and controlling. She'd been planning to leave, maybe even for good, and I could see it all now. Her secret meetings, her secret accounts, the money she'd taken. She'd even set up a separate email account to coordinate with Mark, and I found receipts for hotels and dinners they'd had, all paid for with our joint funds. It was like she'd been living a double life, and I was just now waking up to it. I decided I couldn't just sit around anymore. I needed to get my ducks in a row. I called a lawyer, started looking into my options. I knew she'd fight me over the house. She always claimed she deserved half because she helped build it, even though I paid most of the bills. The house was our biggest asset, and I wasn't about to let her walk away with everything after what she'd done. I also wanted to know how to get back the money she stole, but I knew that wouldn't be easy. She hidden it well, probably transferred it offshore or into accounts I didn't even know about. Meanwhile, she kept up the act, acting innocent, calling me paranoid, accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She told everyone I was manipulative, that I was controlling and jealous. She even tried to turn the kids against me, saying I was overreacting. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had proof, and I was ready to fight for what was mine, for the truth. One night I caught her trying to delete some of her messages from her phone. I saw her hurriedly wiping her screen, her eyes darting around like she was guilty of something big. That's when I snapped. I confronted her right then and there, demanding she tell me everything, how much she'd taken, what she'd done with the money, and why she thought she could get away with it. She lost her cool. She called me a manipulative bastard, said I was just trying to control her, that I had no right to pry into her life. She threw her phone on the table, her voice rising, trying to make me feel like I was the crazy one. But I wasn't backing down. I told her I knew about the affair, the stolen money, everything. That I wasn't going to be a victim anymore, not after all she'd done. That night, I felt a strange mixture of rage and sadness. Rage because she'd betrayed me so deeply, stolen from us and lied her way through it. Sadness because I realized I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, the woman I married. The woman I still loved, but who had turned into someone I barely recognized. It was like my whole world was crumbling, and I didn't know if I'd ever recover from this shock. But I also knew I had to be strong. I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I started planning my next moves, how to confront her legally, how to protect myself and my assets. I knew she'd fight tooth and nail over the house, claiming she helped build it, that she deserved half of everything. She'd spin stories, twist facts, lie through her teeth. But I had enough evidence now to fight back. I was done being the victim. I was ready to take control of my life, no matter how bitter the fight would be. The days that followed were a blur of meetings with lawyers, digging through financial records, and trying to piece together what was left of my sanity. I couldn't believe how cold and calculated Lisa had become. Her bitchy attitude was now accompanied by a new layer of arrogance, like she thought she was untouchable, that her lies and manipulations would somehow save her from the fallout. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was just jealous and controlling, trying to make her feel guilty for having a normal life outside our marriage. But the truth was, I was furious. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman I'd loved, who now looked at me like I was the crazy one. She had this way of twisting everything, making herself appear innocent while she was the one who'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. She lied about her whereabouts, about her meetings, about everything. And she kept denying the affair, even after I handed her screenshots, bank transfers, and her own messages proving otherwise. One night I decided I'd had enough of her bullshit. I sat her down and told her I knew everything, the affair, the money, the lies. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She rolled her eyes, scoffed, and called me paranoid. She said I was manipulative for accusing her without proof, even though I'd shown her everything. Her voice was dripping with contempt as she told me I was jealous and possessive, that she deserved to be happy and free. She even had the nerve to say she was the real victim here because I was trying to control her life. I felt my blood boil. I told her she was a selfish bitch who thought she could get away with everything, that I wasn't going to let her walk out of this clean, that I'd fight her for the house, for the money, for my dignity. I told her I was done playing nice, that I'd go after her legally, and I'd expose her for what she really was, a manipulative, cheating, money-stealing liar. She just laughed at me, that smug, bitchy smile on her face. "Good luck," she sneered. "You're not going to win anything. You're just a manipulative control freak who can't handle the truth." That's when I realized she truly believed she was untouchable, that her lies could carry her through anything. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had enough proof to fight her in court, and I was ready for the war. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, calling me names, accusing me of trying to ruin her reputation, painting herself as the innocent victim. She'd tell everyone I was manipulative, controlling, jealous, anything to turn the tables. She even went as far as claiming I was abusive just to make herself look better. It was surreal. I'd never hit her, never raised my voice, but she was trying to paint me as some kind of monster. That just fueled my anger. I started to realize that her bitchiness was just her defense mechanism, her way of covering up how guilty she felt. The more she lied, the more I saw through her. I knew I was heading toward a legal battle, and I also knew she'd fight dirty. She'd do anything to keep her secrets, her money, and her freedom from consequences. But I was done. The victim. I'd been betrayed in every way possible, and I was going to make her pay one way or another. Honestly, part of me felt broken. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I was left with nothing but a pile of lies and broken trust. But I also knew I had to stay strong for myself, for my future. The house, the money, the truth, they all mattered. I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. The fight was just beginning, and I was preparing myself for the war that lay ahead. The legal process moved faster than I expected once I had all the evidence lined up. My lawyer advised me to file for divorce immediately, citing her infidelity, theft, and the breach of trust. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that my marriage was essentially over, but I couldn't see any other way out. Lisa fought me tooth and nail, of course. She hired her own attorney, and suddenly the house became a... She started claiming she deserved half of everything because she helped build the house, even though I paid most of the mortgage, taxes, and renovations. She insisted she was entitled to a share because she'd been married to me for 8 years, ignoring the fact that she'd been secretly cheating and stealing from us. Her lawyer argued she was entitled to a settlement, and that the money she took was joint funds, even though I knew she'd transferred most of it offshore or into secret accounts she'd hidden from me. Meanwhile, the accusations flew back and forth in court. She called me manipulative, controlling, even abusive, trying to paint me as the villain. I just sat there, listening to her lies, feeling a mix of rage and disgust. I had all the receipts, the bank statements, the texts. I knew she was lying, and I was determined to prove it. I also hired a private investigator to track down the money she'd stolen. It was a huge relief when I found out she'd transferred most of it to an offshore account in the Caribbean. That was the first real win. The judge ordered her to produce all financial records, and when she finally did, it was clear she'd been hiding a lot. She opened a secret account, paid for her trips with Mark, and even bought herself a new luxury car with our joint funds. Seeing all this laid bare made it impossible for her to deny her guilt, but she still insisted she was the victim, that I was just jealous and controlling. That was her go-to line, trying to make me look like the bad guy while she played the innocent victim. The house was another major issue. She claimed she deserved half because she'd helped build it, and that she'd put her blood, sweat, and tears into it. I knew that was bullshit. I'd paid for most of it, and I had the receipts to prove it. Still, she fought hard, trying to twist the narrative to make it seem like she was entitled to everything. Her lawyer even suggested that I was trying to steamroll her because I wanted to keep the house for myself. That was the moment I decided enough was enough. I wasn't going to let her manipulate the court or me anymore. I hired my own team of experts to evaluate the property's worth and to verify my claims. I also gathered all the evidence of her theft, her affair, and her lies. I wanted to go in with a clear, unshakable case. I knew she'd be fighting dirty, but I was prepared for that. The hearing was intense. Lisa sat there with her bitchy smirk, trying to look innocent, but I saw through it. When the judge asked her about the missing money and her secret accounts, she stumbled. Her excuses about bad investments and mistakes sounded hollow. I could see the frustration in her eyes when I laid out all the proof, her texts, bank transfers, and her own admissions. It was satisfying but also sickening, knowing how much she'd betrayed me. As the court proceedings dragged on, I felt a mixture of relief and exhaustion. I knew I'd win the house, given the evidence, but I also knew this wasn't over yet. Lisa would keep fighting, trying to spin her lies and manipulate the system. But I was determined to see it through. I'd lost a lot, including my trust and my marriage, but I still had my dignity. And I was going to make sure she paid for what she'd done, financially, legally, and emotionally. I didn't care how much she tried to paint herself as the victim. I had the proof, and I was ready to battle her until the very end. The court battle dragged on for months, and each day I felt like I was walking through a minefield. Lisa's lawyer kept coming up with new tactics, trying to delay proceedings, questioning my credibility, and claiming that I was trying to undermine her to get the house. She spun stories about how she was the real victim, how I was manipulative and controlling, and how she deserved a fair share because she'd sacrificed so much. It was exhausting listening to her lies, but I stayed focused, knowing I had the evidence to back me up. One of the biggest blows came when Lisa's lawyer argued that she was entitled to a significant portion of the house because she had contributed emotionally and domestically during the marriage. That was a new one. I had to sit there and listen as they tried to paint her as a partner who helped build the home, despite the fact that I paid for most of it. I shot back with receipts, showing all the payments I had made: mortgage, renovations, taxes. I even had bank statements proving she'd taken money out of the account without my knowledge and transferred it offshore. Meanwhile, Lisa's attempts to gaslight me intensified. She accused me of being obsessive, paranoid, and jealous, even though I had all the proof. She claimed I was trying to ruin her reputation, but the judge saw through her lies. I could tell she was getting desperate. She even tried to turn the judge against me, claiming I'd been emotionally abusive, an outright lie. I kept my composure, knowing that honesty and evidence would win in the end. The turning point was when I managed to get a court-ordered forensic audit of her financial accounts. It confirmed what I'd suspected. She'd moved most of the stolen money into offshore accounts, hidden assets, and even bought herself a luxury car with our joint funds. Seeing it laid out in black and white was vindicating. It proved beyond a doubt that her claims of contribution were just her way of trying to justify her theft and betrayal. The judge finally scheduled a hearing to determine the division of assets, including the house. I was nervous but confident. I knew I had the law on my side, and I had the evidence to prove her lies and theft. Lisa, on the other hand, looked more desperate than ever. She threw everything she had: accusations, tears, even a few fake apologies, but I didn't buy any of it. I'd been betrayed too deeply. When the judge finally announced the decision, it was a relief. The court awarded me full custody of the house, given that I was the primary breadwinner and owner. Lisa was ordered to pay back the stolen money, which she would have to liquidate assets to cover. She was also ordered to pay me a substantial settlement for her betrayal and for the financial damages she caused. It wasn't exactly revenge, I'd call it justice, but it felt damn good to see her lose control, to see her face fall when she realized she'd lost everything she tried to manipulate her way into. The aftermath was bitter. Lisa moved out, furious and vowing to fight me in every way possible. She called me names, spread rumors, and tried to twist the story to make herself look innocent. But I didn't care anymore. The damage was done, and I knew the truth. I'd lost my marriage, yes, but I'd gained clarity. I learned that trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. I also learned that sometimes the only way to fight back against manipulation and lies is with hard evidence and relentless determination. Looking back, I wish I could say I was happy with how everything turned out. I'm not. I still feel the sting of betrayal every day. But I also feel a strange sense of relief, knowing I stood my ground, fought for what was right, and didn't let her get away with destroying us. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone in a similar situation, it's this: document everything. Keep your evidence close, stay calm, and don't let them manipulate you. Because in the end, truth and justice matter most. After everything was finalized, I thought I'd feel some kind of relief, but honestly, it's been a mixed bag. On one hand, I got the house back. The money she stole is being recovered, and I finally have some clarity. On the other, I lost the woman I thought I knew, and that betrayal left a scar I don't think will ever fully heal. I've had to rebuild my trust in people, especially women, knowing how easily someone I loved could turn into a manipulative liar. Living through this has made me realize just how fragile relationships can be and how quickly they can unravel when lies and greed take over. Lisa's bitchy attitude, her constant lies, her manipulations, they all revealed a side of her I never wanted to see. She always played the victim, always spun her stories to make herself look innocent, but the evidence was too overwhelming. I was, yes, but I also learned to be more cautious, more vigilant. Trust is earned, not given blindly. Since the court case ended, I've been focusing on myself. I've cut out all her toxic influence, and I've started going to therapy to deal with the emotional fallout. I've also made some changes in my life, more time with friends, focusing on my business, and trying to rebuild my confidence. It's not easy, especially knowing she's out there, still trying to manipulate the story. But I refuse to let her define me or my future. The biggest lesson I've learned is that sometimes justice isn't about revenge but about reclaiming what's yours. It's about standing firm when everything inside tells you to break down. I've come to accept that I'll probably never trust her again, and that's okay. Sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on, stronger and wiser. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, trust your instincts, document everything, and don't let them gaslight you. The truth may be painful, but it's always worth fighting for. When you stand your ground, even against the most manipulative people, you come out of it with a sense of integrity that no lie can tarnish. Now, I look forward to rebuilding my life on my own terms. I'm not perfect and I still have scars, but I know I'll be okay. Because at the end of the day, I stayed true to myself, fought for what was right, and refused to be manipulated anymore. That's what matters most.